I guess this little documentary is really on the subject of how the hell did we get from here to here in only 2 years. I've been doing the solo artist thing pretty much since I was 13 years old, and it just was starting to get a little lonely, especially when I had to deal with any kind of rejection. I guess the last straw was when Atlantic Records gave me $10,000 to make a demo for them, and nothing came of it. It was time to lose the ego and form a band. I walked out of my apartment, 716 Christian Street in South Philadelphia, and I was on a mission. I'm gonna find my bandmates, my musical soulmates. I think I went to just about every club in Philadelphia for the next couple days, but I just didn't see them, whoever they were. So I looked in the paper over the weekend. I saw an ad, bassist looking for band. I called, and the guy said that he had just graduated college and wanted to take a year, see if he could make a go at music. I met Mark Getten in front of the Walnut Street Theater in Philadelphia, handed him a cassette, and we shook hands. And I swear to God, I knew right then and there, I'm going to be friends with this guy forever. Somebody suggested Jim Cavanaugh. Jim Cavanaugh and I gigged a million times in my teenage years and early 20s. I think I drove him crazy because it was like the late 80s, and I wanted him to play like a drum machine. But the funny thing is, now I was back to my rock and roll roots, and Jim Cavanaugh wasn't such a crazy idea, so we reconnected. After jamming one or two times, Jim suggested calling Jerry McWilliams to play lead guitar. Jerry was a friend of Jim's and a killer guitar player. We tried it, and it was pretty cool, but it just wasn't it, and we knew it. So I returned to looking in the paper again. This time I placed an ad, looking for George Harrison or Next Best Thing. A couple days later, Rob Bonfiglio shows up at my door. He has a Rickenbacker guitar, and I swear to God, he owns a sitar. What are the chances? I knew about 50 seconds into jamming for the first time, the four of us, that this was it. The rocket ship to our dreams had arrived. We put the pedal to the metal and played anywhere and everywhere. I didn't have a doubt in my mind about this band. I don't think any of us did. Couldn't write songs fast enough. Every time I would bring one to the band, it sounded better than I expected. And not just Jim and Mark nailing the groove, the feel of it, but it was Rob who added colors with his voice and guitar playing. I hadn't heard my songs sound like that before. Something just sounded better. I don't know, world class, I guess.
I remember being surprised in the early days of the band that sometimes we might spend a few hours just working on one or two songs. None of the other bands I'd ever been in was like that.
My thought was, I'm going to book us everywhere and anywhere, anything to get us on stage as much as humanly possible. And we rehearsed 3 nights a week, and we hung out, and it was like as if we'd been together for 10 years. I wanted to move this thing fast. Time was running out.
Looking back on it, the way we ended up meeting Mike Mismano, it was complete serendipity. Maybe it was fate, and maybe it was just dumb luck. But for some reason, the stars aligned.
A year and a half later, Jim said, let's take some new band photos. So we did. We asked our friend Gus Grabowski to grab his camera and take a walk with us around town. And then we saw it. A super cool, statuesque brownstone on Pine Street. I was like, there it is. Let's pose there. We knocked on the door and asked if we can pose in their garden behind the gate. Sarah Block opened the sky-high door and said, oh, you're a band? My husband owns a studio. And yeah, sure, you could take a picture in the garden. Go ahead. Gus snapped the picture. The deal was this, $5,000 and you get the studio from Friday at midnight
to noon on Monday.
I'll never forget asking Michael, what if we don't finish the recording by Monday at noon? He exhaled smoke from his fancy European cigarette and said, you're shit out of luck. Only one problem, nobody had $5,000 until Ken Pollock stepped up. He was a fan, he had the money and the faith. The weekend came.
We recorded Troubled Man first.
A little after midnight.
I walked.
Before we fade.
We also cut stage name and
Sundial by the end of the weekend.
Mike Mismano was instrumental in helping us capture that sound, what we really sounded like when we played on stage.
And when we went into the studio with him, it was the right studio, the right producer, the right batch of songs, and the right band.
The tape that we purchased to record all this. ran out while we were recording Sundial. And that was it. We ran out of tape. We ran out of time.
I can remember falling asleep behind the console towards the end of our marathon weekend session that got us the 4 tracks that ultimately got us signed to RCA. And Sundial was being mixed full volume. I was having serious lucid dreams, and that combined with all the cigarette smoking and the lack of oxygen and the lack of sleep, I knew at that point when I woke up that everything was going to be different for us from that point forward.
So here's the deal. Here's what happened. We leave that weekend and we know the recording that we just did is it. We had been back and forth to New York doing shows for record labels and nobody bit. I never wanted to release an independent thing. I just wanted to wait till I got a real deal record deal. That was kind of my thing. I always felt like that was settling for second best. But I love those recordings so much, and I started to just hate every record label exec. So we were like, fuck it, let's just release it independently. We sent in our artwork, complete with the pictures from that fateful day at the house, and the music to disc makers. A week had gone by, and while we were still waiting for our CDs to arrive, Gus Grabowski dies. Completely unexpectedly. It was a heart attack. A lot of us thought it was a broken heart from a bad breakup. So Gus never saw the CDs with the artwork on them. Our managers, Debbie Schwartz and Dennis Colligan, had sent copies of the 4 songs we recorded at Tongue and Groove Studios with Ms. Mono a couple weeks earlier. Our managers get a call. RCA's interested. They get another call. Sony's interested. Both labels want us to come up to New York and do a showcase for them. I was like, fuck that. I'm tired of going to New York. If they're interested, they'll come to see us. They'll come to our rehearsal room. Our managers were petrified. You're going to blow it. It's going to piss them off. You got to go to New York and do a showcase. I was like, no, I've been doing that for years. If they're interested, they can take an hour-and-a-half train to Philadelphia. We do our set for Sony at our rehearsal room. A couple days later, RCA comes to our rehearsal room. We do the same set for them. RCA offers us a full-blown record deal at the end of the week. Never wound up releasing anything independently.
At this point, we had amassed a lot of songs from which to choose what would go on the album, and Scott was continually writing, so there were some brand new ones as well. One was Deepest Blue, written about our friend Gus, the photographer taking pictures on the day we stumbled upon Michael Block's house. Gus had passed away between the time the initial 4 songs were recorded.
Peter Robinson and the folks at RCA asked to hear the other songs we had, other than I Walked, Stage Name, Sundial, and Troubled Man. I didn't want to play them the other stuff we'd been doing. I always loved when my songs were brand new and they were recorded right away. So I basically put off sending them or giving them any other songs that we had. I wound up writing the rest of the album, including one song I wrote with Rob called Coffee in the Kitchen.
Prize, the debut album from Wanderlust. Billboard magazine calls Prize one of the most transporting debut albums of the year. Wanderlust, Prize. Featuring I Walked. Wanderlust, Prize on RCA.
Everything was clear. Saw lights from a distance, it was crystal clear. All the things in the world that just don't work
Percolator. Maxwell Hellstyle.